The Trump family, from Kallstadt to the White House. The story of the Trump family is a quintessential, multi-generational American saga of immigration, ambition, real estate, spectacle, and ultimate political power. It is a narrative that stretches from a small, wine-growing village in Germany to the most powerful office in the world, driven by a relentless pursuit of prosperity, a genius for branding, and an uncanny ability to channel the zeitgeist. To understand the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, one must begin with his grandfather, Friedrich Trump, a barber who set sail for a new world. The founder, Friedrich Trump, and the American dream. Friedrich Trump was born in 1869 in Kallstadt, a picturesque village in the Kingdom of Bavaria, part of a newly unified Germany. His family were not poor peasants, but minor vineyard owners and vintners, wine-born, a respectable but difficult trade with limited upside. The region, the Palatinate, was a cradle of emigration in the late 19th century, as industrialization and vineyard blight pushed young men to seek fortune abroad. At the age of 16, in 1885, Friedrich left. He did not simply depart. He emigrated formally to avoid mandatory 3-year military service, a decision that would later have repercussions. Like millions of Germans before him, he landed in New York City. He anglicized his name to Frederick Trump and, unlike the archetypal immigrant who toiled in factories, he headed west, following the tracks of the expanding Northern Pacific Railway. His first business was not in steel or railroads, but in basic human necessities, food and shelter. He opened a restaurant, likely a simple boarding house or hotel, in the frontier boomtown of Seattle, then in the Yukon during the Klondike Gold Rush, and later in the mining towns of British Columbia. These were not establishments of refinement. They were rough-and-ready places where miners could get a hot meal, a bed, and, as historical records and family lore suggest, likely access to alcohol and female companionship, services highly lucrative in male-dominated settlements. Frederick was not mining gold. He was mining the miners, providing the infrastructure of desire. He accumulated a small fortune, demonstrating a sharp instinct for identifying where money was flowing and positioning himself to capture it. By 1901, with his gold rush wealth, he returned to New York, a burgeoning metropolis, and invested in real estate. But a pivotal moment came on a visit back to Kallstadt in 1902. There, he met and married Elizabeth Christ, a young woman from a neighboring village. He brought his bride to New York, but Elizabeth, overwhelmed by the city's chaos and longing for the familiar order of Germany, persuaded him to return to Kallstadt. The family, which now included a daughter, returned to America. In 1918, Frederick Trump suddenly died of Spanish flu, leaving his modest estate to his wife, Elizabeth, the builder, Fred C. Trump, and the empire of brick and mortar. The stewardship of the family enterprise fell to Frederick Christ Fred Trump, the second son, born in 1905. Elizabeth, a formidable and frugal matriarch, instilled in him a ferocious work ethic and a zeal for expansion, while his older brother showed little interest. Fred, at just 15, began working in construction. He possessed his father's entrepreneurial drive but channeled it into a more structured, scalable, and respectable enterprise, home building. Fred Trump's genius lay in understanding and exploiting the mechanics of mid-20th century American housing policy. He began building single-family homes in the then undeveloped outer boroughs of New York, particularly in Brooklyn and Queens. His timing was impeccable. The post-World War I boom, followed by the post-World War II housing crisis and the GI Bill, created an insatiable demand for affordable housing. Fred Trump mastered the art of building sturdy, detached, and semi-detached homes for the rising middle class, teachers, civil servants, police officers. He was a master of cost control, efficiency, and leveraging government financing. His most significant fortunes, however, were built through the Federal Housing Administration, FHA. He became one of the nation's largest beneficiaries of FHA-backed mortgages, constructing massive apartment complexes like Shore Haven and Beach Haven in Brooklyn. He understood the formulas, the regulations, and the political connections needed to secure these lucrative, government-guaranteed loans. His business was a public-private partnership avant la lettre, Fred cultivated a public image as a self-made man and a provider of quality housing. He was active in Brooklyn politics and philanthropy. Yet, his empire was not without controversy. A 1954 U.S. Senate investigation revealed he had profited excessively from an FHA project, though he avoided major penalties. Later, in the 1970s, his company was sued by the Justice Department for racial discrimination in its rental practices, a case settled with a consent decree. Without an admission of guilt, Fred Trump's world was one of concrete, calculation, and control. He lived not in glamorous Manhattan, but in a large house in the leafy, suburban Jamaica Estates section of Queens. He drove a Cadillac, wore conservative suits, and prized discipline above all. He built an empire estimated to be worth hundreds of millions by the time of his death in 1999, a testament to the power of post-war American capitalism, leveraged finance, and sheer relentless effort. Donald J. Trump and the alchemy of attention. Donald John Trump, Fred's fourth child and second son, was born in 1946 into the comfort his father had built. But from the start, Donald's temper, where Fred was taciturn and focused on the nuts and bolts of construction. Donald was flamboyant, ambitious for fame as much as fortune, and drawn not to the outer boroughs, but to the glittering, competitive skyline of Manhattan. After a stint at the New York Military Academy, meant to instill discipline and degrees from Fordham and the Wharton School, Donald joined his father's company in 1971. He quickly pushed the business into new, riskier territory. His early Manhattan projects, like the renovation of the Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt, with crucial tax abatements secured through political maneuvering and the construction of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, established his template. These were not just buildings. They were statements. They bore his name in giant, gilded letters. Trump Tower, with its bronze glass facade and lavish atrium, became a monument to 1980s excess and his personal brand of luxury. Donald Trump's true innovation was understanding that his name could be a currency more valuable than brick and mortar. He pioneered the concept of branding before it was a ubiquitous business strategy. He licensed the Trump name to other developers. Projects, sometimes with mixed results. Launched airlines, casinos, a football league, the USFL, a board game, steaks, vodka, and water. He became a ubiquitous tabloid figure. His marriages, divorces, and brash pronouncements chronicled in the New York Post. He authored The Art of the Deal, 1987, which cemented his public persona as the ultimate deal-making billionaire, a persona that often blurred the line with reality. This period was also marked by spectacular failures. His Atlantic City casino empire, loaded with debt, collapsed in a series of bankruptcies in the early 1990s and again in 2004, while he used complex corporate structures to shield his personal finances. The failures stained his business reputation. Yet, he demonstrated a Houdini-like ability to rebound, using media and narrative to portray himself as a perpetual winner. His role as host of the reality TV show, The Apprentice, 2004 to 2015, was transformative. The show's catchphrase, "You're fired," and its portrayal of Trump as the omniscient, decisive boss, rehabilitated his image for a national audience, introducing him to Middle America as a symbol of business acumen and uncompromising strength. The political dynasty, from Mar-a-Lago to Pennsylvania Avenue. Donald Trump's political aspirations surfaced long before 2015. He floated a presidential run on the Reform Party ticket in 2000 and was a vocal proponent of the birther conspiracy against President Barack Obama in the early 2010s. His political identity shifted over decades from New York liberal to a populist conservative, but his core themes remained consistent. A belief in America as a deal that was being poorly negotiated by weak leaders. His entry into the 2016 Republican presidential primary was initially met with derision by the political establishment. However, Trump's campaign, eschewing traditional political correctness, big-dollar donor networks, and reliance on party machinery, tapped into a powerful vein of discontent. He channeled anxieties about globalization, immigration, cultural change, and a perceived loss of American stature. His rallies were media spectacles. His use of Twitter a direct, unfiltered hotline to his supporters. He framed himself as the ultimate outsider, despite his decades in elite New York circles, promising to drain the swamp and make America great again. Against all predictions, he defeated Hillary Clinton in the 2016 Electoral College, achieving what his grandfather and father never could have imagined: the ultimate seat of power and legitimacy. His presidency, 2017 to 2021, was as disruptive as his campaign. It was characterized by America First foreign policy, significant tax cuts, deregulation, conservative judicial appointments, including 3 Supreme Court justices, and a constant state of political and cultural conflict. His administration saw the first impeachment, 2019, over Ukraine, the chaotic response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and a contested 2020 election loss to Joe Biden, which he refused to concede. The culmination was the January 6, 2021, attack on the U.S. Capitol by a mob of his supporters, leading to his second impeachment for incitement of insurrection. Yet, his political movement did not end with his defeat. He remained the dominant force in the Republican Party, and in 2024, he secured the Republican nomination for president once again, seeking to become only the second president in history, after Grover Cleveland, to win non-consecutive terms. The next generation, a family enterprise in politics and business. The Trump family is deeply intertwined with his political and business operations. His third wife, Melania Trump, a former model, served as First Lady with a focus on select initiatives, but maintained a notably private demeanor. His adult children have played prominent public roles. Donald Trump Jr. became a fiery surrogate on the campaign trail and a key link to the GOP base. Ivanka Trump served as a senior advisor in the White House, working on issues like workforce development, though her tenure was marked by ethics questions and mixed political impact. Eric Trump, alongside Donald Jr., helped manage the Trump Organization during the presidency. Tiffany Trump, from his second marriage, has had a lower public profile but has participated in campaign events. The involvement of his children reinforces the image of the Trumps as a closed, loyal unit, a family business now operating on the global stage of politics. Their roles continue to blur the lines between the family's private commercial interests and public service, a defining and persistent critique of Trump's political career. The American Saga realized. The journey from Frederick Trump to Donald J. Trump is a 135-year epic of transformation. It began with an immigrant's desperate hustle in gold rush saloons, evolved through the disciplined, brick-by-brick construction of a middle-class housing empire, exploded into the gilded, debt-fueled spectacle of Manhattan celebrity, and finally erupted onto the world stage as a disruptive political force. Each generation built upon and reacted against the previous one. Frederick sought opportunity away from tradition. Fred sought stability and respectability through tangible assets. Donald sought fame and cultural power through intangible brand and narrative. In Donald Trump, the family's defining traits: ambition, resilience, a knack for self-promotion, a comfort with controversy, and a relentless instinct for identifying and exploiting underserved markets, whether for minors' comforts, post-war housing, tabloid drama, or political alienation, reached their apotheosis. The Trump story is, in many ways, a reflection of America's own contradictions, its aspirational dream and its worship of wealth, its tradition of reinvention and its fear of change, its populist impulses and its elite institutions. Whether viewed as a story of triumphant success or a cautionary tale, it is undeniably a powerful and defining chapter in the ongoing story of the United States, proving that in America, a name can become a brand can become a phenomenon, and a phenomenon can, for a time, capture the highest office in the land.